Friday morning and welcome along to OTB AM. It's 7:45. We're delighted to have you alongside us, myself and Eoin Sheahan, with you as always on a Friday morning. Good morning to you, Eoin.
Morning, Adrian. Nice caption there.
What was the caption?
Taxi driver woke him up this morning.
Oh my God. It was one of those ones, as us great football men would say, Eoin, that 5 to 6 this morning, which would be the time that the taxi driver normally arrives, of a Friday morning, the phone started ringing and I couldn't remember turning the alarm off, even though I know I'd said it. You know those sort of days that it's like, if that guy hadn't rang, I mean, the OTB AM viewers would be distraught this morning because they'd have only you for company.
Yeah, I'd be talking to myself. I would have found plenty of stuff to talk to myself about this morning, given it's such a big weekend, but it probably would have been just a dour affair. But good on you for keeping your phone on loud during the night.
I didn't actually know it was on. It was on the lowest audio setting for that exact reason. That I kind of figured if it ever came to that I would be woken by it. You know yourself, it's pretty quiet.
Well, it's good to have you here, Adrian, and I'm delighted I missed my opportunity.
Busy weekend of sport. The Champions League final obviously is going to be something we're going to discuss a little bit later on. Pro 14 final is something we're going to get our teeth stuck into. PGA Championship. Here's a bit of a flavour of what's coming up on the show today. In fact, I mentioned the Champions League final. Bruce Grobbelaar is going to be with us at about 8:45, 20 to 9 thereabouts. If you've got any questions for Bruce that we can put to him, that'd be great. Get them into us. Hashtag OTBAM. Leave a comment here on the YouTube channel, Facebook, wherever you're consuming us. Or if you are listening at the audio stream, jump onto one of those social media platforms and send us in your thoughts. So that's Bruce Grobbelaar coming to you before 9 o'clock this morning. We're also going to chat about Leinster Scarlets. I've already been in conversation with Alan Quinlan to tell him to leave his Leinster bias at the gate this morning so we can give this one a proper good preview for you. That's coming your way just after 8 o'clock. We're going to chat a little bit about US sports, interesting developments in US hockey over the last couple of days. So Owen's going to bring us all the details on that and the back pages. So that's upcoming. Busy weekend of sport on. We mentioned some of it there, the Champions League final, the Pro 14 final, the PGA Championship I mentioned. One of the greatest rivalries in hurling over the years, Tip Cork and Semple. That is going to be an absolute belter. I mean, you have Laois Westmeath, which I think is going to be, on a lot of people's weekend calendar, is probably amongst the highlights, I would think. Although I think that Westmeath are slight favourites for that. I'd be chancing a few quid on Laois from all I'm hearing in terms of what's going on in Westmeath and the players that are or aren't there. So I'd probably have a bit of a nibble at that. But the big one, Owen, the big one that most people are going to be expecting us to spend probably about 45 minutes or so chatting about this morning is Carlo Kildare.
Yeah, I don't know why you're giving me the sarcastic tone. At O'Connor Park in Tullamore. Yeah, I wouldn't. The cheek of you to downplay this fixture.
We should do a long preview of this game is really what I'm thinking.
The editorialising via tone there, Adrian, is something that's actually starting to hurt.
If you're interpreting that as sort of some sort of negative reaction to the fact that Carlo are playing Kildare this weekend and
it certainly sounds like it.
O'Connor Park. All I know is that Off the Ball and News Talk are going to have their best people at Boardnamona, O'Connor Park this weekend for the mighty clash of Carlo and Kildare.
Best person, in fact.
Best person, right.
It's so good they only needed to send one person. I'm looking forward to making my first trip to see the Carlo footballers at this current iteration of the team. There is a complete possibility, just in all seriousness here for a second, that we are actually going to see a magical moment for Carlo on Sunday. There is a chance that happens, of course.
Slim though, right? I don't know what
it's certainly slimmer than it was
here.
Like right after the league, you look at the way the bracket was set up in Leinster and you're like, Carlo win their first game, they progress to face Kildare. That will be a tasty fixture. I think at the time, for some reason I thought it was going to be in Carlo. So that isn't the case at all. It's in Tullamore. And also, we all thought at the time that Brendan Murphy would be playing for Carlo. That isn't the case. So those two factors away, you would make Kildare probably about 6-7 point favourites, which I'm sure is in and around the spread. I haven't had a look at the odds for the game. But that doesn't mean that Carlo are out of this by any question. And were they to win on Sunday, which is a possibility, it's not like a Munster game where it's Kerry going up against a Division 3 team, or it's certainly nowhere near the level of a Mayo or a Galway, and obviously not like Dublin last year going up against Carlo. There is a realistic possibility of a big shock on Sunday.
We understood when you made the Kerry. There's no need to sort of back away and say, well, other teams are also excellent. We understand the sort of sneering Kerry attitude there. That was understood straight away.
All I'm saying is if Carlo beat Kildare on Sunday, it will not be as big a shock as, say, tip beating Kerry.
Division 1 team. I mean, I do appreciate how one-dimensional that comment is in the context of everything that's happened with Kildare over the last 12 months. Haven't won a game in 11 months.
You've done more research in this game than I have.
There you go. Gar McDonald is up nice and early. Morning to you, Gar. And he says, morning lads, score predictions for the Champions League final. That comment on the hashtag OTBAM on Twitter this morning. So good morning to you, Gar. Keep the comments coming in. Score predictions on. I mean, a lot of goals is the short story prediction for this one.
For Liverpool or Real Madrid. Yeah, it's going to be 3-2, isn't it? Which direction it goes is pretty much whichever way you're leaning. It's probably going to be Real Madrid. Is there a possibility that we can see Liverpool getting, I don't know, a little bit of a rude awakening on tomorrow evening?
I think that's a possibility.
That it's like you're 20 minutes into the game and Real Madrid have already scored 2 goals. A little bit like Manchester City felt after that Liverpool barrage.
Yeah.
A couple of rounds ago. So
hard to know what a rude awakening would be, because the one thing is that you suspect Liverpool are going to score goals, and so in that context, what's a rude awakening? Like, they may score 2 goals, you would think that's not beyond the realms of possibility either way, and end up losing 4-2. That's also highly possible.
That is the thing about this Liverpool team. Nobody knows what the hell is going to happen.
Yeah.
They could do anything. I can easily see kind of a camera panning to Trent Alexander-Arnold's kind of ashen face after 20 minutes after Ronaldo's already completely ruined him and has scored twice. I can also see a camera panning to Trent Alexander-Arnold celebrating after putting in a beautiful cross right onto the head of Roberto Firmino or something that has put Liverpool 1-0 up after 5 seconds. So it's a game that I wouldn't say is beyond analysis, but there is such a wide spectrum of analysis around this game that is all viable.
Yeah, everything is possible. We'll talk to Bruce Grobbelaar about it at about 8:45 this morning, so that's coming your way a little bit later on before the minute time for the papers.
OTB AM.
In association with Air. Get Air Sport free with Air Broadband.
All right, 8 minutes to 8 on this Friday morning. Delighted to have you along with us. Quick look at what's happening across the back pages this morning. We're going to start here with the Irish Independent. Ronaldo can swing final for Madrid, says Roy Keane, who's before the media yesterday in the lead into the Republic of Ireland's upcoming friendlies. And a picture of a beaming Mo Salah boarding the plane for Kyiv at John Lennon Airport yesterday. There was more photographs of him beaming on the other side afterwards as well in some of the other papers.
Well, what does it say at the top right of that newspaper there, Adrian?
Tomás O'Shea, why Kildare are closer to Carlo than they are to Dublin.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't a very hot take for me there a minute ago. It's actually a sensible thing to say.
Utterly reasonable, I think.
Yeah, very reasonable.
I mean, all the big guns are there this weekend. Rebels suffer blow. Alan Cadigan out for the Cork Hurlers for the rest of the summer, so blow for him. And Sexton gets the all clear for historic double tilt. So this was the question on everybody's lips really this week in the lead into the Pro 14 final at the tomorrow, whether Johnny Sexton would be fit or not. The Times Ireland, let's give you a quick look at what's happening there. Keane says to Ferguson, get well soon. That's best wishes from the long-time friends and sometime foes, but everybody united obviously in wishing Alex Ferguson all the best. And Rory McIlroy going pretty well at the PGA Championship is the other dominant story in the back page of the Times Ireland today. The Irish Times, meanwhile, it's Champions League dominance here in the back page, and a history lesson from Ken Early here in relation to all the issues that that country's had, that Ukraine has had over the last decade and more. So kind of an interesting juxtaposition in terms of the game this weekend and the Disneyfication, I suppose, that tends to come frequently with the Champions League when it rolls into town. The blue banners come out and all the little bits of sort of the footpaths get polished a little bit on, and the city gets turned out nice and good for the people who will just roll into town and really not overly consume. That's the good thing about this piece in the Irish Times today, is that most people will go to Kyiv. A lot of them will kind of come in, go to the game and get the hell out of Dodge again and not overly really interact with the idea of Kyiv as a city.
Yeah, I've heard that there are parts of Ukraine which are absolutely stunning. Like, I mean, that's a very political piece, which is very different. I mean, from a political standpoint, it's obviously a completely messed up country still, and there's very, very obvious things that have occurred there over the past couple of years that would lead you to believe that, and there's evidence there. But just from a pure touristic point of view, I've heard people who've gone to different places in the Ukraine, and apparently it is beautiful. It's one of those hidden gems. So if you can actually park, human ideology for a moment, it's a good place to go.
It is one of the things that these cities tend to do, and increasingly in sort of some of those Eastern Eastern Europe and maybe a little bit beyond, countries that might have had tenuous enough relationships with human rights, for example. They tend to make big money bids for sporting occasions that ultimately legitimise them as a location. So ultimately that's exactly the point. Everybody's now discussing Kyiv as a location, and a location that you can go to and be relatively safe, and it's a pretty nice place to see, and that's the desired outcome of these things.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it probably got that with Euro 2012 as well, in a much bigger sense.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody is here 6 years later saying, oh, remember the legacy of Euro 2012 on Kyiv. Whatever I used to think about Ukraine has now been completely changed because a football match occurred there.
No.
So I don't think this is going to have any lasting legacy on the truth of Ukraine and Kyiv and the political history of the place.
Keane wants more from senior players is the other interesting piece here on the Irish Times. Emmett Malone writing there just about what Roy Keane says about the dynamic of himself and Martin O'Neill's squad, and that, you know, some of the younger players, you got to give them a bit of a break. They're not always going to be on it. He said it took him 20, 25 caps before he found his feet at international football. Got to give the young lads a break, which is sort of interesting from Roy Keane, because giving anybody a break, not normally in his wheelhouse. Ronan O'Gara is here writing on the front page of the Irish Examiner sports section, and also a pretty cool drawing here of Gareth Bale in a pose that we're all very familiar with him in Unrequited Love, while Madrid has never truly embraced Gareth Bale. Now, I mean, you know, he ends up starting perhaps the Champions League final and having a big impact, and maybe suddenly that relationship that at one point you certainly thought was actually all headed in one direction, i.e. him leaving, there might be some possibility to repair it.
Yeah, I think it's a huge evening for him tomorrow, because it's a summer without Gareth Bale. For the brand of Bale, he's got to put in a performance tomorrow evening that people will still remember come August time, because a lot of things are going to happen over the next month or two where bigger stars get bigger profiles, and people will overtake Gareth Bale on the list of the most famous world athletes, especially when it comes to football. So I think it's a huge evening for him. It is the end of his season, and not that anybody who's on the pitch tomorrow is thinking about the World Cup or thinking about saving themselves any little bit, but there is a little bit of an added incentive for Gareth Bale that is like, this is the last chance for me to put myself in the world market from a commercial point of view for the next 3 months.
Yeah, if he gets that game. I think we've got the Irish news. Here we go. I haven't seen any of this, so bear with me here. Dan Starr O'Hanlon says his season is over. That's pretty self-explanatory, and because I can't really see much of the rest of it, we'll park that one there for the minute and give you a quick flavour of what's happening on the Racing Post. Mainly that the Horse Racing Ireland have appointed a new chairman. It's Nick Hartery, who's a well-known businessman and also a stud owner in County Limerick. So he takes over the reins there with fairly, I think, immediate effect. And then obviously it's Champions League in the back. Hat-trick heroes Real Madrid, 8-11 for third straight Champions League title. That's it for me, Eoin.
Let's look at the back page of the Herald. Rock of Trust is Dub's key, is the headline in block caps here. Dublin's kicking king believes their ability not to panic comes from a strong spirit within the team. The Dubs, of course, are out this weekend. Pogba lacks support at United, says Roy Keane, of course, in his press conference yesterday, as you'd expect, dominating the back pages this morning. The back page of the Mirror is going with events in Kyiv and events a little bit closer to home. Starting with the Champions League final, it says can-do attitude. Star Emre defies injury to set up a glorious final chapter in his Kop career. And then the other one, as I mentioned, a little bit closer to home anyways, Jack Poch, Tottenham boss, wins spending row with Levy for huge transfer funds. So that is a big development and a hugely positive one for any Tottenham fans out there this morning, that not only is Mauricio Pochettino hanging around, he is going to be given a much bigger transfer kitty, but more importantly, you'd imagine, a much bigger wages kitty to keep the stars they already have. New White Hart Lane, it is a massive season for Spurs next year.
I just got the Jack Poch.
You just got it.
Yeah.
Right. That taxi really didn't wake you up early enough.
I'm still getting stuck into the coffee here. Yeah, it's interesting because it's the one thing that Pochettino up to this point had been celebrated for, the fact that he hadn't really spent very much money at Spurs and had achieved some modicum of success with them, albeit without necessarily winning too many trophies. But the fact that he's going to be back now, some interesting names been linked with him this morning: Sessegnon, Martial, a few other players that, you know, you talk about Tottenham perhaps kicking on to the next level. A few players like that actually might be just exactly what's required to get them I don't know if it's going to make them compete for the Premier League title necessarily over the course of the season, but certainly kick them into the next level.
100% stagnation is something that Spurs will be looking to avoid. But Arsenal, on the other hand, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang is quoted on the back page of the Mirror here this morning, talking about Arsene Wenger, saying over the last few seasons, you have to tell the truth, the club has stagnated a little bit. I think everyone is excited to see what happens next season. Emery's a really good coach. I know he did really good work with Sevilla and PSG too. That is Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, the man who said Arsenal stagnated under Arsene Wenger, the man who signed for a club managed by Arsene Wenger, of course, in January.
Cheap
shot indeed by a man. Like, I mean, let dead dogs lie is the phrase I think I'm reaching for there.
Dead dogs? Sleeping dogs.
Sleeping dogs.
I mean,
wow, okay.
I don't know what's happening around North Kerry.
Sorry, Arsene Wenger is still alive and well. The back page of the Star this morning is €48.5 million. Poch signs mega Spurs deal. You've also got the match in Kyiv as well. Cakewalk for Salah. Mo Salah there presented with a cake and flowers at the airport in Kyiv ahead of tomorrow's Champions League final.
He's got quality written on his runners. I don't know if you can see it in that photograph.
Quality, yeah.
It appears in some of them, which...
He's not a Connacht man.
I don't know
He's
if that's deliberate necessarily, but yeah.
Well, I presume it's just the new Nike
brand. It could be,
is it?
Yeah, fair enough. I thought it was some sort of deep, meaningful message for the times we live in, Owen, but sure, look, there we go.
Probably is. It's probably that's why Nike
the day that's in it here, it's the romantic in me, you know.
Yeah. The back page of the Sun says, "I want more from you." Roy rallies. He's challenged his senior players to give a little bit more over these next couple of weeks, and indeed into the Nations League. There's that Aubameyang story there as well that says stinker and then stonker. That's Maurizio Pochettino's new contract, and then finally a couple of UK titles. England need a Lord's Prayer, says the back of the Guardian. Rootsmen slumped to a 63-year low as Pakistan take complete control. You might want to get in touch with Kevin O'Brien for some tips on how to have some success against Pakistan. And I think the Telegraph is going with England-Pakistan as well. Indeed it is. Pakistan warned as England crumble. So that's the back page of this morning.
Following that one fairly in depth, have you?
Well, I've been looking at the back pages of UK titles.
The same way you've been following Carlo Kildare is what I'm guessing.
Well, I will make sure that I am brushed up beyond belief for Carlo Kildare come the time of throwing.
It'll be a jamboree, folks. I expect it'll be good stuff.
Hopefully, yeah. I've never had a jamboree around a Carlo Kildare match before, but it's the first time for everything.
What actually is a jamboree?
Well, the technical term for a jamboree, it's actually kind of a gathering of like scouts, isn't it?
Oh, that is? Right.
Google the definition of it. Obviously, we would use it for a very different context.
Right. Just got 8 o'clock on this Friday morning. He's been warned to leave his Leinster bias at the door. We'll see if he can do just that for us. Alan Quinlan is coming into us in a couple of minutes' time, where he's going to discuss all things Leinster Scarlets in the Guinness Pro 14 final. So that's coming your way very shortly. And to take us there, we were all the way down in Limerick during the week. We were at Bruff Rugby Club in association with our friends at HeinekenRugbyClub.com. We had a great show, and you can check out the full podcast is up on offtheball.com. Do go and check it out. It's a brilliant listen. We'd John Hayes there, we'd Fiona Steed, Eddie O'Sullivan, loads of club members. We'd the referee, international referee George Clancy. So it was a great night. Let's take a quick clip here of the Irish rugby power couple, Fiona Steed and John Hayes, and here's how they met.
So I won't turn this into a Mr. and Mrs. I promise. But
do you want us to hold hands?
Well, you two met through rugby?
We did.
Okay, we'll move on.
You can tell it.
Will I tell it? I promised I wouldn't embarrass him, though. He'd never do this sort of stuff again.
Okay.
But brief summary. We met at Sheahan Rugby Club, where we both were playing at the time. The Foleys sort of introduced us. Anthony shoved him over, Rosie shoved me over, and we said hello. Actually, Brendan had a lot to do with it as well. And so that was back in 2001.
Right.
And sure, look, we haven't looked back since.
Great. Anything to add, John?
Well, it was the foot and mouth. It was the break for the foot and mouth, so I was around for a few weekends.
Yeah. He had nothing else to do, actually. I went to the cinema with a group of my Shannon clubmates. You know, I had nothing else to do either because of the foot and mouth, apart from work full time. But and then there was him and Stringer and Golliv and a couple of us. They were in camp in Castletroy, and we were like totally unplanned. And Quinny was with you as well, wasn't he, at the time? And so the girls were like, geez, there he is. We hadn't started going out at this stage, and I was like, all right, yeah, cool. So anyway, the rest that we went in to watch, what was it? That we're going to show our age now.
I don't even remember.
Yeah, so Brendan met Trudy, I think, yeah. So me and my friends went in,
like that,
and then the rest of the boys went in, and no sign of John. And I thought, I can't say S-H-I-T. So holy God, he's gone now. That's ruined it. Anyway, about 5 minutes later, he comes in, and the boys wouldn't let him in. Quinny blocked him from getting into the seats, so he had to go and sit in his own, or sit with me, but he sat in his own on that night.
You didn't, did you?
I think so.
Well,
Did I?
just in front of them, yeah.
Right. Sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, God bless the foot and mouth anyway, John.
Yeah.
Every cloud is a silver lining.
That's the nicest thing you've ever said.
Quinny, your tentacles reach far and wide. You are responsible for Irish Rugby's power couple, ultimately.
I'm not sure I'm solely responsible.
You had a part,
there was a little part, yeah. There was, Axel was, he had a major part because his sister Rosie was playing with Fiona, so this was kind of on the cards for a few weeks, but we couldn't nail down Hayes to get him in a situation or go on a date, but the cinema meet just kind of happened. It wasn't planned, and we all kind of, we made it awkward for him that he had to chat to Fiona, and they got on fairly well at the start anyway, and they enjoyed each other's company, and it was probably a bit embarrassing for him at the start, but we were loving it. But anyway,
he loves talking about it, doesn't he? He's
very romantic, John. In fairness, you know, he's talking about the foot and mouth. That's he was around for a few weekends, but he's funny. He's great humour, John.
He admitted he was Mr. X as well. He said, listen, that's it, fair enough.
Did he admit it?
Fair cop, yeah. He said he was Mr. X, but then he also said that it was Marcus Horan who punched you in the back of the head.
Yeah, no, but that was clear and obvious that it was Marcus, and Marcus is still in denial with that one, but yeah, it's finally out there, is it?
Yeah, no, it's out there. It's confirmed. I mean, because you tried to stick on the reverse lights when you were in here a couple of weeks ago.
Backtracked, yeah, but good days, yeah. Geez, it was 10 years ago yesterday. We won in 2008. It was amazing, but
that was yesterday, yeah, of course.
Yeah,
Wow.
10 years since we won.
Do you do anything? Do you get together?
No. There's a reunion in the summer, all right. You know, a bit of a get together, but in a couple of weeks actually. But yeah, it's amazing the way the years fly by.
Yeah,
and, it's good to get John though, because John won't do any. He doesn't really do any media stuff. He just had to do that because it was in Bruff.
Yeah. And that's the reason we went down there.
Fiona, honestly, it's the only way you could get him. Fiona probably forced him to do it, and he had to do it for the club. But he's a great character. But look, with great memories, great fun.
It's a shame he doesn't do more, because he's really
He's very
interesting.
witty, because people don't know him. And I did a piece in the Indo last year with him, and it was so well received because he's so well respected in the game, and for what he's achieved, and maybe the path he had to take, moving from second row into back row, not starting playing rugby. He only started when he was 19. And I would have been really close to him because we would have travelled to a lot of the games, all the games together, to training together. And, you know, he's a great character. People don't realise how funny and witty he is. He's really, really good fun. But he's just happy in his own skin. He's happy at home on the farm, and he's not... That was a part of his life that obviously he doesn't forget. And but he's just not... He doesn't really go anywhere or do anything. We slag him about that, but he's great fun though, John, great character. And someone, when you get to know him, he's so funny and witty and he's a real prankster.
Is he, yeah?
Oh, big time, yeah, he is, yeah.
What will he go away somewhere, or what do you do when you're having these 10 years?
There's a trip to Barcelona in June, so it's it's nice. We did one a couple of years ago for in 2016 for the 06 one, for after 10 years as well, and they're good, obviously.
Sure, it'll be poignant enough as well, yeah.
We're usually trying to figure out where the years have gone, but that's sport.
You take in a lot of culture, you'll sort of go and
we go for walks and stuff, and go for see movies and nice long meals and stuff like that, you know. We go to restaurants, and we're big into our food and stuff like that when we're away.
Right, let's get it stuck into the preview for the weekend. Quinny, that's why we have you here. Leinster Scarlets. I mentioned that I want you to leave your Leinster bias at the
where you're going with this Leinster bias. I've been very, very complimentary to him all year.
You have. Look, it's like I was kind of thinking about the fact that obviously it's 5 weeks since Leinster did that job on Scarlets. Like, they gutted and filleted them, and there looked like such a gulf between the two teams. I know there's some other dynamics that we can get into in terms of where Leinster are at and their run into the end of the season, but from Scarlets' point of view, I mean, is that still playing on their mind? Is it easy over a relatively short period of time to put the scars of that behind them, or are they actually so deep that there's going to have an impact?
It's not that easy. I think they will be trying to work and they probably speak and obviously have addressed that and would have watched a video of it back, and the coaches would have done that and presented to the players, and they will just look at little things in that game that went against them and that they were second best, and the main one is the physicality and the physicality around the collisions, the breakdown, Leinster getting on the front foot, and then they can execute so well when they impose themselves, Leinster. So it's not rocket science. First and foremost, you've got to turn up physically and be physically prepared and perform physically in rugby, because if you get the edge in your opposite number from a physical point of view, you can ask questions not just physically but psychologically as well, and you get on the front foot. So Scarlets were second best to everything, so that's something that Wayne Pivac and his team will have addressed. We've got to get in their faces, we've got to impose ourselves. And look, we know that they're a very, very good side when they get good quality ball. Gareth Davies is so dangerous at scrum half. So many threats. Johnny McNichol is back full back from the New Zealander. He was outstanding over in Glasgow last week. And they were brilliant. They were 28-3 up at one stage.
I watched them Friday night and I thought, they're frightening.
No, they wouldn't want to get too far ahead of themselves in the performance, because I think Glasgow didn't have any meaningful games in such a long time that affected their performance. But they'll be full of confidence coming off the back of that result, saying, very simply, we cannot allow what happened in the Champions Cup semi-final happen again in the first 15-20 minutes. We've got to be the ones taking it to Leinster.
Very important over that early part,
it's massive. If Leinster get on the front foot and if they feel there's a bit more vulnerability like there was in that semi-final, they go for it again, and they're very, very good sides.
Have to actually execute. Probably actively, I'm sure they're talking about actively trying to target that as well, that you don't want to give Scarlets any modicum of, you want to ram home the idea that we're a far better team than you, and we're going to prove that over the early few minutes to stamp out any degree of confidence.
Yeah, and sometimes, Adrian, that's not on the scoreboard. It's just putting in big tackles, putting them under massive pressure, making them defend for long periods. You might not get the scores, but at least you're saying, well, you're telling the opposition that we're up for this, we're full of energy, and we're going to do this for 80 minutes, and we're going to break you down eventually. But if Scarlets get a good start in the game, which we know they're capable of, if you look back to last year, and do you know what, coming into that Champions Cup semi-final, there was so much emphasis on Scarlets beating Leinster last year in Pro 14 semi-final, beating Munster so well in the final, and maybe they believed a little bit of that hype that they were a bit better than what they actually are. But to break down that Leinster side, you've got to be on the money for 80 minutes, and you've got to be really, really physical and intense, and stop their big players and stop them from getting momentum, getting over the gain line, because they're so good on front football. And if they can do that, I'm not sure if they can. They'll definitely be a lot better than what they were. But can they, sustain it over 80 minutes? I'm not sure.
Is this do or die for Scarlets, or is it kind of the next step onto where they're going to? Obviously, losing Tyburn is a huge blow to them. You look to the future of Scarlets, but there is kind of a sense about Scarlets this season that this is their year.
Yeah, well, look, after winning it last year, it's hard to come back and win it again. And I think, it's tough for them. If I was a Scarlets player or fan, I'd be saying, why am I going to Dublin again for another final? Why am I going there for a semi-final? It's difficult. Obviously, the semi-final is out of their control, but maybe the final being in Dublin again would frustrate them. But they'll have to try and draw on last year's performance against Munster in the same stadium and try and bin the other one, the negative one, and say, well, we can produce this kind of performance in good weather. And it is kind of last. There's a few changes. They have some signings for next year, but I think Tyburn is going to be a huge loss to them. So many turnovers. He affects so many parts of their game in a positive way. Can break down the opposition, make brilliant carries. He scores tries. Even in that game in the semi-final, he was their standout player, and he was right to the end when he got the try. He was just going all the time. So it is probably last chance saloon. And And when Pivek has said that, we don't want to be known as a one-season wonder. They've made so much progress in the last number of years there. And to be fair, they've a lot of quality players. Some great strike runners in the back line. Barkley is going to be a bit of a loss from his experience. He's out of the game, so it looks like Byrne will play in the back row now. But they didn't get near the Leinster ball in that game, and this is probably the key. It's the only way you can stop Leinster, and Racing maybe have shown that, and maybe a bit Munster last week. You've got to slow that ball down. You've got to force turnovers. You've got to put pressure in their faces defensively. You've got to be rock solid, because they ask questions all the time and their execution is really good. And that Scarlets back row did not get near the Leinster breakdown, that semi-final. And there was one example where Keane Healy's clean out on John Barkley, where early on in the game, Leinster were attacking a couple of yards out, and Barkley gets his hands on the ball, and Healy came in with a clean out, which was a remarkable piece of skill to get so low and clean him out, and they scored off that Leinster. And that just summed up that kind of attitude and intensity from Leinster that day, and their approach. So, you know, Scarlets have got to get at that Leinster ball and force some turnovers.
On that approach, like, is it a slightly different Leinster that we're looking at towards the back end of the season than the kind of free-flowing, try-scoring team that we've seen for large parts of the season? Like, they've maybe been a little bit more pragmatic, which, I don't know, like, might be indicative of the fact that it's come towards the end of the season. There's some of the key players that have been carrying knocks. They're naturally just going to be knackered as a season, sort of such a long season kind of rolls in. I mean, so that's one part of it. On the flip side, actually still managing to get it done, even in that context, is obviously a further endorsement of them. But what you're seeing of Leinster over the last few weeks is a slightly different Leinster?
It is, yeah. It's finding a way to win when they're under a bit of pressure and they're not on the front foot all the time. Defensively, like, there's very few weaknesses, if any, in this Leinster side, because even the impact off the bench last week against Munster, when you felt Munster maybe turning the tide a little bit in that second half, impact. Healy comes off the bench, Porter, Tracy, and they all have big impacts. Turnover in the scrum, they're big moments. So they have players to come on and do that as well. Their league form in recent time, the last 2 or 3 months, hasn't been that good. You know, they've lost a couple of games. They drew away to Scarlets. I know you're missing your internationals for a lot of these. So the form hasn't been outstanding in the league. I think they've maximised, and to be so successful on two fronts. We know it's in any sport, it's really, really difficult to do, because it's the emotional and mental side of that, and being up for every game, and it's very hard to get it emotionally right in every game. Your emotion has to be high to win big games, obviously. But so I think last week would have been much more difficult. Did it drain them? You know, the last 2 weeks, the final, that semi-final, maybe lack of preparation last week. I think they'll be definitely much more relaxed. They don't have to travel. They would have been at home in their beds Saturday night, all weekend, and preparing well for this week. So I think there is one last push in them. And it's remarkable. If they're to win this, you know, the 55 players used in the league.
Unreal.
It's unbelievable. And in the mid-30s, 36 or 37 in Europe. That's phenomenal, Adrian. You know, to have that many players and be able to use them. So I think they've had to manage probably 2 different teams throughout the whole year and get the attitude right, get the execution right. And if they get the job done on Saturday, you've got to say they'll be deserving champions. But I feel Scarlets will be very, very dangerous. And it's kind of that expectation of maybe being the Pro 14 champions last year, and we're going to knock Leinster off their perch, we can go to Dublin and win. That's gone now because they got walloped. So, you know, I think they'll throw caution to the wind. I think it should be a great game, because I think Scarlets will take some risks and they'll really go for it. And then, you know, when the game opens up, Leinster are so good as well. So it should be a cracker.
Yeah, you said that last week is the bigger challenge in terms of getting up for it emotionally, but then, like, look at Jack Conan after he scores that try. I mean, like, that was one of the most emotional things we saw last week, and it came from the Leinster side. Like, what is it about this Leinster team that allows them to get up to that pitch every single week?
Well, that's just kind of relief and excitement and adrenaline, I think, when you get a score like that. You're talking about emotion and getting up for games and being mentally right. On that can only be 1%, 2% below what that peak that you want. because you can't peak every week with that emotion. You can't be up for every single game. They're all different. But they seem to be have a great bond, a lot of togetherness, and they show that in their work rate on the field, you know, and they get a scrum turnover, a penalty turnover. You see the reaction of players, so they seem to be a tight-knit group, and that comes from success as well when you win games. You look at the character of any side in sport, and they seem to have a really good character. The games that stick out for me are away in Glasgow in Europe in round 2, away in Exeter, those 45 phases or something, was it, or 40, mid-40s?
Yeah, Quinlan as well, obviously making the last
try. So that's the sign of a team that are working hard together, and you know, so emotionally it's not, like, I think just to win each week and be up for it and have your head right and have that real kind of drive, it can be tricky at times to continue that run, but winning's a habit, and they're, you know, and to win in Europe, to win against Munster last week when Munster were going to be throwing the kitchen sink at them, to withstand that with the changes, they're very, very well capable of doing again this week and getting the job done.
David Kelly is reporting in the Irish Independent this morning that Sexton is going to start, Nasei was going to start, Levy's going to start. I mean, all of which are a huge fill-up, obviously, from a Leinster point of view. But you're giving Scarlets a bit of a squeak by the sounds of things.
Yeah, I just think they'll be better, and it'll be tighter. I expect there'll be a lot of scores. The question is, and I think if I was a Scarlets player and their attack coaches, how do you break Leinster down? Maybe a little bit of vulnerability in the wider channels because they used their wingers to come up in a little bit. And Munster, if they executed better last week, there would have been opportunities there. But
call it first.
I think Leinster will win by 6 or 7 points. I think they have that ability to give it one final push.
You're off to Australia, I understand, for the summer holidays.
Tuesday week.
More sort of sightseeing and I'm sure museums and
all that stuff. Yeah, absolutely.
Ross Byrne is in, Tyke Byrne is in. It'll be interesting to see Ryan versus Byrne, of course, although if Byrne plays in the second row, as you're saying, maybe that'll be the background.
It's just interesting how Leinster cope with him this week. Did they have a blue scrum cap on someone all week, targeting him again? I think James Davies is someone, the number 7 for Scarlets, who didn't perform in that semi-final. Physically, he was kind of second best to everything. Will he have a better game? Big
chance for Ross Byrne down under and for
there's a massive
Tyke
chance
Byrne down under,
it is. It's brilliant. 2 uncapped players, and you know, I'm delighted for Tyke Byrne because you know, he's someone that's going to has the potential to be in the squad for a long time. And Ross Byrne, he's played 19 games this year and has played really well for Leinster. So. Great opportunity for them to be in that environment.
There'll be 2 big players from Munster next season, the 2 of them.
Well, I'm not sure we're getting Ross Byrne, but we might. We'll take him. We'll take his brother as well, or Joy Carbery. So we'll see how that plays out. But it'll be an interesting one. Should be a good game tomorrow.
Should be a cracker. Thanks a million for coming in.
Pleasure.
Thanks a lot. Alan Quinlan there with us as always on a Friday morning here on OTB AM. We're going to move on. We're going to talk to Bruce Grobbelaar very shortly. I know Quinny is a big Liverpool fan, so he is in much anticipation of the Champions League final at the weekend. So Bruce Grobbelaar's on the way in, and we'll bring you that in just a few minutes. But before all of that, we're going to hear from the Keith Andrews Show, which you can hear from every Thursday afternoon. Here is Keith on imagining Mo Salah was Irish.
Like, to put it into context, can you imagine, like, he's got 1 million votes in that vote, right? Can you imagine if we had a player that was playing in the Premier League for Liverpool, scoring that amount of goals, nailing it all across? Can you imagine
it's all we talk about,
euphoria that would be in this country around if it was Robbie Brady who bounced on from that, and next of all, he was going along nicely, and then that season he just went boom, one of the best players in Europe. The country would literally be off the charts, wouldn't it though? So you can understand it. Like, this is an Egyptian. It's hardly a huge tradition of creating footballing greats over there. It would be ridiculous.
I'd say, I mean, apparently they were saying in the piece as well, literally every advertisement is Mo Salah. Mo Salah with soft drink, Mo Salah with, you know, tyre cleaner for your car, Mo Salah with everything.
We had the thing with the airline a few weeks ago, didn't
we? The airline, yeah. He's across everything. I guess we had Roy Keane was probably the closest we had to like Champions Leagues, and you know, and we were obsessed with him. And like 10 years later, we're sort
still
of still
obsessed
are
with everything he says.
Like I remember when Michael Essien was playing, the country there was obsessed with him. Like every night on the radio, they would just talk about Michael Essien's form for Chelsea. You know, because he was just like the biggest thing they had.
Yeah, Mo Salah, we would certainly, if he was Irish, and I think there'd be a chance he'd feature in the first 11.
Well, you know, I don't want to put words or ideas into Martin O'Neill and Roy Keane's head, but I would certainly be an advocate for putting Mo Salah into the starting team for the Republic of Ireland. Yes.
It's been a while. I know the lads are kind of discussing it there. It's been a while since we've had that type of a player who's been sort of that European superstar that could kind of, you know, the guy who every brand wants to be involved with, who's sort of putting it in, week out. Damien Duff was it, definitely. Obviously, for a while, Robbie Keane sort of flitted in and out of it for a while. Roy Keane was probably less certainly on the marketing side of things, a less marketable character, you'd say. Volatile enough at times, and you know, whether people want to be associated with it or not, it's kind of by the by. You want somebody in the team who is going to be of that nature. It's been a while since we've had them. We've had a couple of false dawns with some maybe young players coming through. But it'd be good to have somebody you could kind of. We don't really have it at the minute. That player that you can kind of hang your hat on, like Wales and Gareth Bale is obviously the pretty obvious example comparison. Yeah, I think with Egypt, it's not only the fact that Mo Salah has been absolutely astonishing for Liverpool this past season. I think it is also due to the fact that Egypt have had their level of success as well. I mean, that's what we're based on quite a bit here in Ireland, is these moments that we get, and that's why the likes of Roy Keane, the likes of Jason McAteer were so heralded, particularly when it came to commercial ventures and things like that in the lead up to the 2002 World Cup. We've had moments since then. We've had Robbie Brady scoring one of the most iconic goals in Irish football history. Moments we've had, yeah.
Yeah, we've had moments. Yeah. But that's what I feel that a lot of the exposure for Irish footballers is based on. And I know Nathan often makes the point on the show that Robbie Brady as kind of an item of kind of commercial usage hasn't been utilised at all. And I know that's kind of viewing a footballer in kind of how can he be utilised for exposure for a brand. But I think it is a good gauge into how popular a person is, how much of a national treasure this person is.
Seamus Coleman is probably it at the minute, isn't it? Like it's, you know, because I know this is slightly not a strict football conversation as such, but he's really it at the minute because he's the cool, clean sort of, you know, model professional, says all the right things, does all the right things, you know, captains his country. Everybody speaks unbelievably highly of him. It's not that Robbie Brady isn't a lot of those things, but, you know, if I'm a brand, I want to hook myself onto Seamus Coleman.
True, yeah. If we're not having a strictly football conversation then, though, where does Seamus Coleman rank in terms of all Irish sports stars? I would say it's a top 3 all rugby. You've got Tyke Furlong, Robbie Henshaw, and Johnny Sexton. Are we including Conor Murray?
I mean,
all probably ahead of Seamus Coleman.
Pandora's box here. Rory McIlroy.
Rory McIlroy potentially as well. Not really as you. I'm talking about utilised by an Irish brand to an Irish audience
are being or should be?
Are being.
Yeah.
And I would say.
Yeah, they're probably all rugby. I think that's fair enough.
So it is because of moments. It is because of the connection between how a country felt and what the person, the individual was, and the responsibility for that moment and how they made the people feel. And like, obviously Seamus Coleman is head and shoulders Ireland's best player right now, but that doesn't mean that he's fully captured the Irish imagination. Like, I don't disagree with you. He is Ireland's most marketable player, without question, but without those moments, without doing something in an Ireland shirt which represents either getting to a World Cup, like beating Denmark would have been, and people would have viewed, I don't know, his kind of walking goal against Georgia at the start of the campaign as something of a moment, whereas instead we don't have something to cling on. I mean, like would James McLean have become that person had we qualified because of the Wales moment? The Wales moment would have got. There's obvious
the
reasons for that.
marketability thing, that's just never going to happen.
No.
Who's going to be the most marketable Irish sports star in 5 years' time?
It's hard to look beyond the idea.
Well, I mean, you say no commercial deals.
I didn't say no commercial deals.
Subway say we've got two. I guess that was probably immediately post the Euros.
But it's clear it's obviously not no commercial deals. That's a blatant lie, as we can see on screen. That's not true. Who's going to be the most marketable Irish sports person in 5 years' time? It's hard to see it being a soccer player. It's hard to see it not being a rugby player.
Joey Carbery, I think, has definitely got the capacity to be that.
Potentially, I would say somebody like Gary Ringrose is going to be that person in 5 years' time. Carbery could be, yeah, but Tyke Furlong would be that person in 5 years' time, I think.
David Clifford probably is going to be.
It could be a Gaelic Games person.
Sean Sullivan.
I mean, if Wexford happened to win an All Ireland, Lee Chin for sure.
Kieran, I think more of those Kerry young fellas.
Yeah, but you don't know. I would say that both Gaelic Game stars and rugby stars have a better chance of being the most marketable person in Ireland in 5 years' time than a soccer player. Can more be done with the soccer players? Of course they can, and that's the Robbie Brady case. Of course, it wasn't radio silence around Robbie Brady post the goal against Italy. I just feel more could be done, and I know that's not an original point because Nathan has made that point time and time again. He always said about that summer or the winter after 2016 that he never appeared on the Late Late Show, which is just one small thing to say. Yeah, actually, that's a very, very good point. Why wasn't Robbie Brady on the Late Late Show? I do find when we're quoting Nathan, it is definitely time to move on to the conversation. We've lost ourselves down a serious rabbit hole. Yeah, but he occasionally makes a good point. I think he made that point 18 months ago. Right. That was the last good point he made. The old stop clock sort of theory, is that? Exactly, yeah. He says the same thing about every person. He says some other things about Vincent Kompany. I know he's got some good theories about him too. Just gone 8:30 on this Friday morning. Delighted to have you along with us. We've lots of good comments coming in. We're going to bring those your way very shortly, and so keep them coming into us. We've Bruce Grobbelaar on the way. He'll be in the building very shortly. He's obviously going to do a bit of preview Liverpool, Real Madrid, but there's some other good stuff that we want to get his thoughts on, including having played under some pretty legendary Liverpool managers during his time at Anfield. So that is all coming your way very shortly. It is obviously the 25th of May, and polling booths have been open for the last 90 minutes or thereabouts. They're going to remain open until I think it's 10 p.m. this evening. So it's a momentous day, obviously, in Ireland today with the referendum on the 8th Amendment. So make sure you get out, use your vote wherever you are around the country. Make sure you get out and do just that. Now, we have spent a little bit of time there talking about Roy Keane. The Declan Rice conversation has come up again. Is he going to play for England? Is he going to play for Ireland? I kind of thought this one had been put to bed, but here's Roy Keane on it at yesterday's press conference.
Can I ask you how surprised you were to hear David Gold challenge Manuel Pellegrini to turn Declan Rice into an England international?
Well, it's going to be pretty difficult if he's Irish. And he is Irish. He plays for Ireland, yeah.
And he's given every indication that Ireland is where he wants to play.
Yeah, because he's Irish. Yeah. Where else would he want to go? If you had a choice, Ireland or England. Pretty straightforward, isn't it? Ireland.
Classic Roy Keane. Absolute classic. I mean, the photographs did him utter justice as well, it has to be said. Yeah, I'm sure that's what he was thinking. That was the exact question he was answering when we saw those photographs there. I'm glad to hear that. Once the question's asked, you're like, yeah, actually. But he himself has come out, he's totally put this to bed. Like, David Gold has obviously just not seen, was it a statement or a tweet or whatever he'd put out a number of weeks ago saying, I am going to be a Republic of Ireland international. There was no ambiguity about it. It was the opposite of the Jack Grealish stuff. We didn't need to have a million calls about it. No, there's no absence of clear communication. He's going to become a Republic of Ireland international, and I'm assuming all of that just bypassed David Gold. Somehow, yeah, it's a wonder that David Gold isn't tuned into the workings of the Irish football team. Well, it is one of his own players, team. So it is a bit of a surprise in all seriousness. Of course, Declan Rice is an Ireland player. I mean, once the question is asked, there is like a tinge of worry. But I think Roy Keane there has made it very clear, and the player himself has made it very, very clear over the past few months that he's going to be an Ireland player. At what point does he become officially kind of off the table? Is it Nations League? I presume so. Yeah. I assume so. Yeah. Like everybody downplays the Nations League. Possible opportunity to get him in, obviously, and they are official UEFA matches. So at that point, the talk stops. And friendly doesn't do it. I don't think it would be one hell of a turnaround and a stab in the back to Ireland if it did happen. It'd be Grealish totally in reverse, because he was obviously he's obviously chosen England, having said he was invested in the Irish thing. Actually, sorry to be a repeat of the Grealish thing, but he'd probably get a game is the only difference. I don't know, it'd be slightly bizarre because you're going into the England team then going, and they're all looking at you going, "But you said you were Irish. Like, what's the deal?" Yeah, that's the thing. I think it'll be a very good test of his mettle, though, under another new manager. He's already survived two of them because
like we've seen in the past, even with the likes of Slaven Bilic himself was kind of changing his mind around players like Reece Oxford and things like that at West Ham, and he kind of fell out of favour. And even when you get a new manager in, players like that can fall down the pecking order dramatically after that, and that has not happened with Declan Rice. So a third manager, I'm pretty confident he's going to be fine.
My view would be that if he doesn't get to play one game under Manuel Pellegrini, that would be business well done. That he gets himself the hell out of West Ham at some point over the next few months would be, I think, the best step in his career, and actually well within the realms of possibility, you would think, given the way he's been spoken about.
Well, I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure I agree with that, like from a player's perspective. A club can be a basket case and the football team can still be well managed. Like with Unai Emery's been all across the papers this week. He was part of a basket case club at Valencia, but I would guarantee you most of his Valencia players at the time would say, no, my career benefited from working with an incredibly good manager. And I think the same can be said when you have Manuel Pellegrini at West Ham. Like, you look at his pedigree in Spain, you look at, he's a Premier League winning manager, and
nothing to do with Pellegrini. Nothing to do with Pellegrini at all. The two things are, firstly, that it seems as if his quality is above the standard of West Ham, is going to become above the standard of West Ham. That's it on one side. And on the other side, you do appreciate that it's probably not currently above the standard of West Ham, and that actually he needs game time. So there isn't any point in him going to a top 4 or 5 or 6 club yet, because he needs to obviously continue to sort of cut his teeth. So maybe it is another season at West Ham, but at some point he needs to get, I believe he needs to get out of there.
Yeah, it's a massive season for him though, isn't it? I mean, like, do you really believe that top 4, top 6 clubs might be in the ballpark for this guy right now?
It seems, not right now. Clearly not right now. No chance right now.
Okay. So what do you propose he do then, if you're saying he should get the hell out of West Ham?
Well, I am suggesting that he spend at least another season at a club where he's going to be playing week in, week out. I would say that ideally that's not... Ideally that's not West Ham. No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that at all. Ideally he plays for another season. Ideally, that's not at West Ham. So, what are your options after that? Do you, go to another basket case sort of mid-table club like Everton or one of these? Who knows? Maybe he stays put for a year and works under a nice, quiet manager like Pellegrini, who isn't going to fire him under the bus at every hand's turn when he makes a little bit of a slip. Because that's the thing that stands out in people's mind from Declan Rice. Now, he's had like a brilliant breakthrough season for a guy of his age in his position, which generally requires a bit of maturity. And the thing that most people remember is David Moyes flinging him under the bus.
Yeah, pretty much. I wonder, can a club like West Ham unbasketise case themselves? Can they become a well-structured club? Somehow I don't think the likes of Gold and Sullivan are at the point in their life where they're willing to kind of look around and become more men of the world and say, listen, I'm going to listen to other people's ideas now.
It's not the way it works.
I don't
know. Yeah, I do think... It seems, from listening to people who know about this stuff, Gary Breen, Kenny Cunningham talking about Declan Rice, that there is that. Like, we get carried away because he's an Irish player and we like to sort of assume that he's going to go on. But listening to those guys, certainly seems as if his quality is slightly beyond West Ham. Right, it is coming up on 20 to 9. Bruce Grobbelaar is coming up very shortly. But before that, some interesting developments for people who are just interested in good sports stories generally. This is US hockey.
Yeah, well, there's hockey and there's basketball, obviously, both at the business end right now. We may as well start with the hockey since you brought it up. It's a couple of days old now, this story, but we haven't really spoken about it. We'll speak about it in depth once the Stanley Cup finals start next week. If you want a bandwagon, the Las Vegas Golden Knights are your bandwagon. Like, I'm sure a lot of people have kind of seen on Twitter things about Las Vegas. This is an article that was written last June. Wow, the Golden Knights are going to be bad. Now, let me just explain the backstory to this before we look at different parts of this article.
Barry Pochettino is right now sort of hiding away in a hovel somewhere.
Yes, and the reason why he's doing that is, to be fair to him, when he wrote this article, they were 500 to 1 to win the Stanley Cup final, which they are now in. They're the first expansion team in history to make it to this part of the season. An expansion team obviously is a new team to the NHL. They were created last year. It is the first time Las Vegas have had a major sports team. And in the expansion draft last year, which is basically where you're allowed to just handpick players from all the different teams around the NHL, bar a coterie of players that said teams would like to protect. That expansion draft was said to be an absolute disaster, and that headline was written right after that expansion draft. You can see more from that Deadspin article actually now, just in terms of how bad people thought that this expansion draft was going to be. So there are two schools of thought when compiling an expansion team. One is to go get the very best players available, believing the best way to build a foundation for a team and a fan base is to be as competitive as you can and give fans a reason to get and stay invested. Another is to be as awful as you possibly can. The Vegas Golden Knights correctly subscribe to the latter. Yeah. So there was a lot of piss takes around the Las Vegas Golden Knights.
I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit, but how does that work? So if I decide I want to go and build a new franchise or become an expansion team in the NHL, I'm obviously going to have to replace the team.
Well, it's an expansion team. I mean, the league expanded.
So it goes out, it's built by a team.
This has happened multiple times throughout the history of US sports, once the NFL and the NBA.
Somebody comes in with enough money, enough good dollars, and it's like, right, we can make room for you.
Like Vegas is really trying to promote itself right now as a sports-worthy city. I mean, I'm not sure that they see the whole potential of this gambling regulation being brought into the US, where you can now go and gamble anywhere in the United States, and people don't necessarily need to go to Nevada to get their rush of gambling. So maybe they've seen that and they want to balance it out with actual sport.
I think people will always want to go to Vegas.
I think, to be fair, they will. Sure. But they've obviously got the Raiders coming after the next NFL season, so they're definitely promoting themselves. Like, Vegas has really got behind this team. There was a picture doing the rounds of the Statue of Liberty on the Strip, actually dressed up in a Golden Knights uniform. There it is.
Beautiful.
They're up against Washington Capitals.
Not in the slightest bit tacky.
No, not at all. So
what in terms of the players that they can ultimately just hoover up from? I don't know if that's a financial exchange or how the hell that works, but. So if we were to compare it to the Irish rugby provincial system, if in some sort of
that's very different.
New world that we could, create a new province, let's say, and that new province wanted to hoover up a bunch of players, so they go to Leinster, for example, and in this hypothetical world, and obviously no direct comparison with events at the minute, are they going in and saying Harry Byrne, who's Ross Byrne's brother, who apparently is equally, if not better, good an out half, that they go in and go, hey, we're just going to take that player, and Leinster have to go, all right, yeah, that's the way it works. See you later.
Basically, right. Like, you mean Leinster can say to them, you can't pick Johnny Sexton. He would be one of their protected players.
So not even Carbery or.
Well, I think it's fairer to put this in the context of picking a player from every top tier club in Europe. Like, picking from the provinces, you've only got like a 4-team pool there. You're going to have to pick a lot of players from all the 4 provinces.
I'm up for creating a new province.
To be able to create a fifth province there.
Definitely support 5 provinces.
Where would it be based? Athlone?
Probably. I hadn't had that thought, yeah.
Or it would probably, if there was going to be
I'd say it's Athlone, yeah.
If it was going to be a 5th province, it'd be Cork, really, wouldn't it? The
People's
on its Republic. Own. Yeah. I know there's they have the stadium. They have the fan base.
People would not want to suddenly disassociate themselves with Munster, I don't think. I think that would be...
Well, maybe they would make themselves Munster and call the rest of Munster Limerick or something like that. I don't know.
Let's just go for Athlone.
Let's go for Athlone. So
we should do that sometime. We should actually just
do a mock expansion draft. Yeah, I wish I actually watched this expansion draft, because it is a little bit unfair in the teams who've stacked their roster with all these players. But anyway, it was...
They pay for the players.
They've got there's no transfer fees.
Up for them.
There's no transfer fees in...
Nothing. So no...
But there's no transfer fees in American sports anyway. It's all salary caps.
So I've invested in Harry Byrne to become the player that he is, and then you just come in and go, thank you very much.
That's the way the cookie crumbles. I mean,
that's bullshit, isn't it?
But like, Harry Byrne's been growing up playing for a team that he's always wanted to play for. That you never get given that option in American sports. They think in a different way. You go to whatever college you can get to. You go to whatever team drafts you.
Association with the team, it's the financial investment.
But think of the neutral. Think of all the people, all the cities.
It's truly neutral. I'm just, as a billionaire, invested in this guy, and now you're just coming and whipping him.
There aren't too many Harry Byrnes in American sports where you get so ingrained into a culture where you've been... That's like getting drafted by college in the same town that you're going to play for in the major leagues or whatever. So that's it's an irrelevant example. I don't know why you even brought that up, but maybe the 5th province is probably the most sensible thing you said there.
Well, if that's the most sensible thing.
Yeah. But basically, it's a bandwagon. If you want one, it starts next Monday night, I think.
Okay.
The Washington Capitals are their opponents. They haven't been in the Stanley Cup final since 1998, so whatever happens, it's going to be a pretty fresh winner here. It's been an amazing story. 500 to 1 at the start of the year. 500 to 1 right now would be Laois or Westmeath to win Sam Maguire. So that's what we're talking.
Well, let's not rule that out.
Yeah, for sure. And as you can see, there's a lot of people not looking silly, because everybody was writing that stuff. Deadspin was the first thing that came up for me when I googled Las Vegas shit, and it was Deadspin that came up in Google. If you you want another bandwagon as well, the NBA playoffs have turned into something.
You said it starts on Monday night.
Monday night, yeah, 1 a.m.
Is a series.
Series, yeah.
Right. Of 3?
7.
7. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, like, what's so incredible about that?
I mean, it's a lot of games. I mean, you are going to get
the
team that deserves to win it, obviously, at the end of all that.
Yeah, I've never heard anybody kind of be absolutely taken aback by the idea,
it's just like
of a
you know, the
series.
Pro 14 gets down to the final 2 and then they have to play each other 7 times before you decide actually
It's rugby. Stop making rugby comparisons. Like, not everything has to come back to rugby. Not everything has to be based on the idea
Galway
of rugby.
and Waterford get to the All-Ireland final and then
Different
they should go and play
sport.
each other. Well, actually quite similar to hockey.
It's a huge
in a lot of
pitch.
ways.
You don't exert as much energy in a game of ice hockey as you do in a game of hurling.
Well, you could, like, if you introduce rolling subs into hurling and then do it.
That would level the playing field to a certain extent, but still not. I mean, have you seen the dimensions of an ice hockey rink?
They're pretty tight.
Yes, it's nowhere near the dimensions of... Are you actually trying to wind me up here or something? Like, what?
No, I'm not, but I'm glad to see it's working.
Okay.
I mean, just saying, it's a lot of games. That's all I'm saying. I mean, 3 is kind of typical. 3 is sort of typical. 7 is a lot.
Okay.
That's all I'm saying.
Okay. The
It's a good trophy though. It's well worth playing.
Players will be very tired.
Well worth playing 7 games for that. It's a good trophy.
You've got to do it all again on Wednesday evening, straight after Monday evening.
Monday, Wednesday. It's every 2 days, is it?
Every 3 days. I think the next one then will be the Saturday next week. Yeah. Can I talk about basketball? Because this has exploded. We were talking about this last week and it was like both of these series could meander into nothingness potentially, that Boston could absolutely wallop Cavs and it looked like Warriors were going to do the same to the Rockets. So last night has completely blown open the whole idea that the Golden State Warriors could go for yet another NBA championship. They've been the Western representative in the NBA Finals every year since 2014. We saw Chris Paul and James Harden there last night. Pretty poor games for them. James Harden is one of the best three-point shooters in the league. He didn't score a single three-pointer last night. The Rockets still won 98-94. They're now 1 game up. They're 3-2 up going into Game 6, which takes place on Saturday night. And Warriors are in severe jeopardy of crashing out of the NBA at the moment. It will be a huge shock given what happened in Game 1 when they went to Houston and won. Houston have been this team that have been created to take down the Warriors, who of course are one of the greatest teams we've ever seen. And it seems that was going to backfire like straight away on Game 1 and that this would be a disaster series for them, but it's gone right in their favour. On the other side of things then as well, it looks like it's going to be Boston Celtics that are going to make it through from the East, despite all my pledges almost that LeBron James is the greatest basketballer in the world. His side of been poor over the last couple of nights. Boston have gone ahead. They won 96-83 2 nights ago. Rookie Jason Tatum doing a lot of damage for Boston. And it looks like my LeBron take is still valid. Like, I'm still right. But he's...
What's your LeBron take?
Well, that he's the best player of all time.
Oh, I heard that.
But it looks like it's going to go home all the way. If that's the pattern that emerges in both of these series, it's going to be Houston Rockets versus Boston Celtics in the NBA Finals.
People who know better about this stuff than I do, Michael Darren McCauley being one of them in your company that day, called bullshit on that. So, I mean, I'm happy to sort of roll with that.
The most incredible thing about this now, Adrian, is that they play 7 games in a series. And they're going to be very tired at the end of playing all that basketball.
I think it's valid, right?
It's not valid.
Was there any time where they just played...
LeBron is looking very tired right now, in fairness.
Oh, look, there you go. There are things that can, help you out with that.
It is like his 110th game of the season, but...
Are there... has it ever been thus? Did they ever actually just play one final, or get to the end of the regular ladder season and just the team that were on top had won it?
Maybe way back before like the NBA merger, like way back. I'm not sure.
I think stumped on is what's happening.
They used to play 5 games up until the finals and then go up to 7. So they used to play less. But who would have thought it? Professional athletes playing 7 games in the space of 2 weeks. It's
stuff that can help you out with that, isn't there?
There is a court, but like you've got to realise they're playing like whatever 40-something minutes per night. It's not like they're playing 70 minutes and having to run the length of Croke Park here. I'm just saying that your rugby comparison there was definitely...
Well, we tried to diversify and sort of,
Yeah, bring it back to rugby.
Hurling. We went hurling.
That's diversity for you right there.
Owen Sutton says there's only one final this weekend. This is on Facebook. Morning to you. Owen says there's only one final this weekend, lads. Fulham against Aston Villa, which we totally failed to mention at any point in the show so far. Conor Hourihane and co are one step away from Premier League glory. # up the Villa.
Yeah, Ger gave it a mention the other night. Big Villa fan, obviously. He's not going to the game. But to have Villa back or to have this exciting Fulham team in the Premier League, which do you prefer? For me, it's got to be Fulham.
It's probably Villa because of Horan, and I want to see John Terry back in the Premier League. He's not going to play against Chelsea apparently, which is crazy stuff. Glenn Whelan, obviously, back in the Premier League, on where he belongs. So that's kind of the reason. I don't think we've anybody at Fulham, have we?
No, but I mean,
that's really what drives me.
I meant in terms of like exciting football, good players.
I don't think either of them. Well, no, Fulham,
fair,
but he won't be there. He won't be there next year either.
Yeah, true.
Right, when is that? Tonight?
Tomorrow, 5 o'clock.
So that's tomorrow.
So you got that at 5 o'clock, Pro 14 at 6 o'clock, and then the Champions League at 7:45. I really hope somebody gets hammered in the Pro 14 so I can watch the Champions League. Maybe even catch a bit of Dua Lipa beforehand, who's the opening act for the Champions League final tomorrow.
I hope that somebody starts to get hockeyed. You're easy either way.
But I'm not from Leinster.
But you live here. You earn a living here.
So I should.
Well, you should. You should definitely have more of an allegiance to any team in your own country rather than just some band of Welsh fellas.
Well, I also want to watch the Champions League final. I kind of want to watch it from minute one. Like
you're easy if it's Scarlets hammering them or Leinster hammering. You're easy either way. You'd probably rather Scarlets were hammering Leinster actually by the sound of things.
I of course will be supporting Leinster.
Typical,
begrudgingly,
typical Munster begrudgery. 10 to 9 on this Friday morning. Bruce Grobbelaar is in the house. He's going to be with us in just a minute. First of all, here is a massive UFC fight happening, of course, this weekend. It's in Liverpool on Sunday night. Local boy Darren Till, who we've heard from on the show before, takes on Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Here's Till talking to Off the Ball about getting stabbed and moving to Brazil.
I wasn't a bad kid or nothing, but maybe I was involved with the wrong crowd. I don't really know how to explain it to the casual fan or whatever, but I just remember being in a nightclub getting into a fight and that one my mates did, and I remember going over to help out, and I remember just being in the midst of it all, and before I knew it, my t-shirt was bred right and everyone was saying I'd been stabbed, but I didn't believe it. I was I haven't. And then I remember getting dragged outside the nightclub and just getting rushed off to hospital, and then the few weeks of being in hospital, I was on a life support machine thing type of, because it touched my artery. And then when I was fully able to leave the hospital and I went back to the gym, I said to me coach, what should I do now? And he basically told me, if you want to be a champion and want to be this great fighter you keep talking about, it's time to really focus on your career and stop messing about sort of thing. So I said, okay, what do I need to do? And he was like, you have to go to Brazil. They're waiting for you. The Lions den's waiting for you. So I just said, okay mate, bye. Nothing entered my mind apart from, okay, do I need to go to Brazil? Okay, sounds, I'll go. I don't know, I didn't care. I don't care.
So when you arrived there, you've got now Portuguese. What's that like? In a new gym.
Like being a baby when you're crying for something but you don't know how to speak. It's I couldn't speak to anyone. Everyone must have just looked at me like a clown, and I don't like that feeling. So I was I'm gonna have to speak their native tongue now.
Yeah, that's Darren Till there in conversation with our own Joseph Conroy. You can check out that full video and his take on Conor McGregor and more to be found on our YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/off the ball. Richie says on Twitter here, good morning to you, Richie. Imagine being treated to watching Chelsea versus Man United 7 times in the FA Cup final. Laughing face. Fair shout.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
But just think how tired they would be, Adrian.
Well, you couldn't do it. You couldn't do Monday, Wednesday, Saturday, I suspect. I mean, maybe you could. If there was more, they'd have to increase the number of substitutions. You might have to shorten the game time. I'd sort of accept that.
You can't do a field game over 7 games, Adrian. I can't stress this enough to you. Why do you think the NFL has only 1 game per round?
Well, I mean,
it's
come
high
on
octane,
now.
It's high attrition.
Hang on here a second. If you're saying that NFL players couldn't, NFL players essentially do SFA for most of the game. There's no way, you're breaking sweat. You know the sweat you're having coming off after a game of football is that you've got too much gear on you and it's a hot night.
There was only about 1 million players injured there in the NFL.
I'm not saying it's not. You can get injured really easily.
So it's high attrition.
But high attrition is very different from sort of.
It's high exertion.
It's not high exertion.
Of course, it is high exertion.
You can, like most NFL players.
You try hold up
the squad of like
400-pound player while he's trying to sack your quarterback.
NFL players. Most of them are coming off the pitch just without a bead of sweat. It's like, I didn't want you to do. Most of them are not even involved. One guy's coming on just to take the kicks.
Yes, but what about the players who are involved? Like, you do know how crazy it will be to put those guys out.
You take a mad sprint every 5 or 6 minutes or so.
Because they're the only players involved.
And then you stop and, well, the other lads are like hooshing the other fellas out of the way.
Yes.
And that's it. And they swap in and out all the time.
Right, let's get you to hold up that amount of weight multiple times.
Well, I'm not an elite sports person. Let's just call that out straight away.
Okay, we'll do it comparative.
I think I could take enough juice over a period of time and sort of get myself somewhere in that kind of vicinity.
Yeah, well, anyway, the texter was right. Manchester United versus Chelsea 7 times a week would be it would kill all of us. I would never. I would just leave. I don't know where I would go. I would
they might
just
become
leave this part
different
of the world.
games is the only thing. I mean, you don't know. It is Mourinho, so possibly not. Henry Waddle on Twitter. Good morning to you, Henry. Hope you're well. Fulham, he says he wants to see go to the Premier League. He says a young, exciting team.
Yeah, exactly. That's my point. Obviously, it's good for the All Irish if they'll get promoted. Then to say that Conor Hourhan wouldn't be ripe for pickings from a Premier League club though this summer, were he not to get promoted.
Yeah, it's true. OTBM, by the way, is brought to you this morning with Air, the home of Air Sport. You can get amazing live sporting content free with Air Broadband. We have Bruce Grobbelaar coming into us, I understand, in the next few minutes. We were supposed to be off air at 9:15 this morning on because there was something else on, but we're going to be stretching that a small bit now, I think.
Okay.
Just to put that out there. Is that all right with you?
Fair enough, yeah.
Kenny Cunningham has been on the show this week, a lot this week. He's been explaining exactly how Liverpool can get at Madrid tomorrow night, and here is that chat.
Yeah, but I think what you'll see is because Real Madrid play the two up front, really, if they play the two up front, they will pin the two centre halves. And if I was playing right side of centre half, potentially Bale, Ronaldo up front, I'd be screaming at me full back, getting it alongside, particularly Lovren, I need cover, narrow up. You do that, and Marcelo gets himself high up the pitch, it's going to have to be Salah's responsibility to track that run.
Do you make that one then? We've seen it with various people. You make it almost like a one-on-one between Salah and Marcelo, and you're saying, I'll tell you what, then you've got the full...
Yeah, it would be on a case. That's what Madrid, that would probably be Marcelo's mindset in terms of, well, Salah, as good as he is in the last third of the pitch, I'm going to make him defend in his last third of the pitch for the majority of the game. An interesting tactic, of course, if you were to be really brave, when Marcelo gets himself up into those high areas of the pitch, rather than Alexander-Arnold come narrow and expect Salah to track that run, almost become an auxiliary full-back. Do you know what? Lovren, deal with that. Van Dijk, get across. Robinson, narrow up on that side of the pitch.
What you're saying there, you're saying Van Dijk and Lovren have got the responsibility of a one-on-one. They've got to deal with it one-on-one with your
with Robertson.
With
should be a 3v2 there. And Trent Alexander to scream at Salah, no, stay here.
Yeah.
Stay up the pitch. I'll deal with Marcelo here. And any ball we win back in these areas, Salah, have a look. He's picking the ball up here unopposed. Potentially Casemiro might see it. But if he can get into those channels behind Marcelo, running at Ramos, as good as a player as he is in terms of personality and leadership, rash, not as quick as he was, slightly immobile, that's the way in. That's the Achilles heel in this Real Madrid team, has been for the last 2, 3, 4 years. That partnership between Marcelo and Ramos, getting into those enough possession and getting players into that area of the pitch. And Liverpool have one of the best players in the world, the most potent attacking threats operating in that area of the pitch at the moment, supported by an outstanding young fullback. If they can get enough possession, I don't mean dominate possession, and get him in possession in these areas of the pitch, in this diamond system from Madrid, Liverpool are going to have a lot of joy. And that's the fascination for me.
Interesting stuff from Kenny Cunningham on the tactics board this week. I mean, we've discussed earlier on, we expect there to be some goals. Bruce Grobbelaar was supposed to be here about 10 minutes ago, but we believe he is en route, so he's coming your way very shortly. We're slightly squeezed with time with him, obviously, but that is going to come your way very shortly, so we'll get his thoughts on all of that. Ian Caulfield has been in touch on the old Twitter machine on. He's saying to me that I'm not only winding up at Eoin Sheahan, I'm winding up everybody else that's watching.
Yeah, thank you. What's his name?
Ian Caulfield.
Ian, thank you. Correct on all of that. It was honestly, the worst thing about it is you weren't even trying to wind me up. I think that's actually your honestly held belief, which is worrying. It's deeply worrying.
Always my honestly held belief on, you know that.
It's terrible. We've had bad takes on this show.
Cold takes. Freezing cold takes.
That was terrible.
I was just trying to tease it out. This was, I'm not the sort of greatest US sports follower, so.
Go on, here, give me a worst take. Wicklow to beat Dublin this weekend. Go on, say it.
What?
If you want to top it, that's the only thing that can top it right now.
Come on.
The handicap for Sunday, what do you think it's at for Dublin versus Wicklow?
I'd say about 50 points.
22 points, you're not far off. It could happen.
Yeah.
Who are another quick question for you? Who are the team that have suffered the biggest defeat to Dublin in the Jim Gavin era?
It could be Westmeath.
It is Westmeath.
Yeah.
31 points last year, as you'll remember. A fairly grim day for them. Colin Moran's column in front of me here, it says Wicklow are nothing more than roadkill to this Dublin juggernaut. There has been talk this week that Wicklow are going to go toe-to-toe with Dublin on Sunday. What usually happens when a team goes toe-to-toe with Dublin, that don't have the players, that aren't Mayo basically, they usually get steamrolled.
It's hard to know what to do. Like, that was the whole thing with Westmeath after that. If I remember rightly, it was after that 31-point defeat that the manager at the time, whose name totally escapes me, came out afterwards and said, but look, we discussed what we should do with that game, whether we should actually set up defensively or, like, he ultimately came out and said, look, we knew we were going to get beaten either way. Do we set up defensively or do we actually have a bit of a go at it and get some sort of a benchmark of where we're at? You definitely could have some sort of sympathy for that. The only issue was at that time he was kind of laying it at the door of the players rather than saying, actually, well, we were all invested in this thing. It was like, oh, those lads over there now, they made this really shit call. So, yeah, I don't know. You probably have a bit of a go, don't you? Like, Wicklow are not going to beat them either way.
You have a bit of a go. Like, I don't necessarily think that going toe-to-toe with Dublin necessarily has to be your plan for the entire match. Is there an element of it that when it gets to 15 points and there's, 10, 20 minutes to go, that you're like, right, let's just stop the bleeding here? There is an element of optics around it, in terms of local press, in terms of the ability for outside thinking to penetrate camps in Gaelic games, because these people go to work every day.
If you were managing Wicklow against Dublin, what would you do?
I would probably, whatever Kildare did in the Leinster final last year, just take that blueprint and run with it, because outside of the top tier, as in the top 2 or 3, Kildare probably had the best success against Dublin, and it's still little to no success. Whatever they did in the first 10, 20 minutes of that game last year, that's basically it. I mean, they had an elite point scorer in that game in Daniel Flynn, who scored an outrageous score, if I remember correctly, under the Cusack stand. So Wicklow don't really have that, but like, everything is, but it's Dublin. Like, they can put together some sort of decent game plan, but it's Dublin. You will disillusion all your support if you go too defensive, but you will get hammered if you don't do that.
I know, it's grim. You get kind of grimmed out either way as a Wicklow fan of those. As a Westmeath fan, I've been at those games. I've been at games where, in Leinster finals particularly, even over the last 3 or 4 years, where Leinster have given it a bloody good go by setting up defensively, ultimately by trying to contain Dublin in a way that, you know, there might have been, in some of those games, maybe 2 points between them at half-time, and like, nobody was under any illusions at half-time by thinking, whoa, Jesus, if this was to go sort of slightly a different way in the second half, we might be able to eke something out there. Everybody understands what's ultimately going to happen in the game, but they're far better, even though the football is not necessarily that pretty. It's it's far easier to watch those games.
For sure.
Where you're not getting, football isn't pretty, you're not getting beaten out the gate. Ultimately, there are other teams that you can benchmark yourself off. It doesn't have to be Dublin.
Definitely, yeah. There is a couple of other GAA stories which were kind of picked up on the back pages, but we didn't really give them a mention. Just 2 big injury stories, really, that Alan Cadigan is sidelined for the rest of the season. So that's a huge dent to Cork's All-Ireland potential. And the other one is that Lee Brennan's going to be out for 8 weeks for Tyrone, another huge blow.
Bruce Grobbelaar in the house. We're going to talk to him in just a second, but to take us there, it's John Walters. We're going to bring him in just a second. We've got lots of good stuff we're going to talk to Bruce about on. We're going to talk to him about having played under some pretty legendary Liverpool managers, the boot room there under Joe Fagan and Paisley, and latterly then Kenny Dalglish, obviously.
Probably fair to say he played under 75% of Liverpool's greatest managers.
Yeah.
There's a statistic for you
in just a second. To take us there, Johnny Walters talks about his Burnley future.
Yeah, look, I've been fit for a while and in the squads and not picked, so look, I can't moan too much. The team are doing, ever so well, but I think I spoke with the manager and I think I'm available to go if needs be. So got to assess it and see what's there, and but first and foremost is these games. I want to get back playing, get minutes under my belt, and as I said, show them still playing.
You and Sean Dyche are both pretty straightforward guys, so how does a chat like that go?
Pretty straightforward, really. Yeah, it was. I just come in and if I wanted to do it, then it'll happen.
All right, it's 9:05 on this Monday morning. I'm delighted to say it's a great pleasure to be joined in studio by the Liverpool legend, Bruce Grobbelaar.
Thank you very much indeed.
Morning, Bruce. Thanks a million for coming into us. You're here with, you're at a lunch this afternoon in Harry's on the Green for a Champions League preview lunch and encouraging people to come down and say hello. I'm sure there'll be no shortage of takers.
Listen, since Harry's on the Green has been open, that's the only place that I usually go down to. Yeah, fabulous place to eat.
Good. Are you in Dublin much?
I have been, 3-4 years ago came over for the rugby, 3 years ago came over for the rugby. Harry's just opened 3 years ago, so that's where we went, and I've never looked back.
Good. You get a good reception over here, I'm sure.
Yeah.
You Liverpool fans. You're a bit lukewarm.
Yeah, walking through the airport today. Yeah, sure we are.
Full on. People are pumped.
Well, there were people on the plane that were, wondering why I was coming to Dublin and not Kyiv.
Yeah. Not tempted to head over?
No, I've been asked to come over here. It's quite. It's an honour to come over to Ireland, especially when they don't want to have Ronnie Whelan here.
We love Ronnie over here, Bruce.
I know, you see, but you see, the thing is they've asked for me.
Listen, get the main man in,
Yeah, and actually I had a trip going out to Kyiv, but I'd already made my decision to come to Ireland, and they came on too late.
Yeah, well, we're happy to have you.
You snooze, you lose.
Yeah,
and there we go.
We're happy to have you. Let's get straight into it. We don't have a huge amount of time. 1984, we wanted to discuss with you in the context, obviously, of what's coming up this weekend. You've described it as the best moment of your career. It was a standout night. I mean, it had everything.
Yeah, it certainly did. We were stoned before we got into the stadium. All the players.
Wow.
The bus driver and
we're talking about being pelted by stone.
Correct.
Yes.
None of the others.
I could have gone either way.
So that set the precedent of the game. And we took it as right.
And Roma were favourites on the night.
Yeah, we were going into the Lion's Den. It was like, those gladiators that go into the Colosseum.
Yeah.
They are hiding to nothing. And if they do win, they either get the thumbs up or the thumbs down. So we went in there and we managed to come away with a victory.
And Liverpool had such an impressive record in European finals up to that point, played 3, won 3. Does that in some ways increase the pressure, or does it take it off a little bit, or did that feed into the night at all?
Well, because of what happened when we initially went into the stadium, that really fired us up.
Did it?
And then in the tunnel when we were coming out with coming onto the field, the Roma people never came out of the dressing room, so we started singing a song, for Chris Rea.
Chris Rea's song. Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but I love it, and so we were all warming up to this. And as soon as they came out of the dressing room, soon they said, "Carry on singing and just look them in the eye." So you can imagine these Italians when they came out there, and we were saying, "I don't know what it is, but I love it. I don't know what it is, but I love it." They must have thought, these boys they're crazy. They're not crazy.
Yeah. They must have, they must be really scared then when it gets down to a penalty shootout, because they're like, look how relaxed those people were before the game.
Well, I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but when we came down to the shootout, we looked over to the Roma side, and they were all lying on the floor with their masseurs on their legs and rubbing, and all of us were standing around having a chat and with Joe Fagan telling us what to do and how to do it, but it never worked out how Joe Fagan wanted it, because Stevie Nicol got into
the first penalty.
Well, he took the ball because Phil Neal was tying his bootlaces.
Right.
So he ran into the box, and Phil Neal said, "Excuse me, it should be me." And he just took a puff of his cigarette. Let's run with it. And that was it.
Wow.
And he put the ball over the bar. And I go past him, I said, "Thanks for that." And he told me, fly away and do your own job. Yeah. It wasn't fly away,
Because the commentator in the clip when he's walking back, it goes, "Oh, and Bruce Grobbelaar's walking towards Steve Nicol now, and the assumption is there's going to be some words of encouragement here, but you don't hear what's said. You just slide past each other."
"Thanks for that." And he said, "Fly away and do your own job."
Yeah, and Joe Fagan has a word with you as well at that point.
Well, Joe Fagan had his arm around me, and I couldn't, I didn't have to look up. I could smell the cigarettes.
Right.
And he just said, "Listen, myself and the coaches and the chairman and the directors and the captain and the team And I'm thinking, where's he going with this? And he said, and the wives and the girlfriends and the 10,000 fans that came, I'm not going to blame you. Oh, jeez, what is he talking about blaming for?
Yeah.
If they can't stop a ball from 12 yards. And I went, oh, okay, thanks. I said, thanks for that. And he says, but try and put them off.
All right.
And I only put off the 2 players that I thought might have the bottle to actually, okay, I'll see how this goes against an international. So the first one was Bruno Conti. And I put my hands on my knees and crossed them over with my hands in a 60s dance. And he shot the ball over the bar, and I thought, oh yeah, might work. Then Graziani putting his arm around the referee, which I didn't like, and ran into the back of the net, bit the net. Went to the other side, bit the net. He crossed himself, and I came in like I did.
Do you ever watch it back?
I watch it back, yeah, and I can still do exactly the same move, but because it was one of those things in the letter of the law, I couldn't move my feet until the ball was kicked. So both times my feet were firmly on the ground, and I just did that. And then this way I was, spaghetti legs, feet was planted, and he just skied it over the top of the bar. Well, he clipped the bar and went over.
Do you think you were directly responsible for the 2 lads missing?
I certainly got into their brain. That's into their head. They couldn't hit the target. They were worrying about me too much. So I certainly got them, into their heads for sure.
Have you spoken to Graziani since then?
Well, Graziani asked me on the semi-final to go to Rome. And because I had already seen the game at Liverpool, and which we thumped them. So he asked a reporter, tell Bruce Grobbelaar I'd like to do the penalty shootout. So we beat Roma in Rome, and we hammered them in Rome. So on the second leg, which is back at Anfield, he asked me to go over to Rome because he wants to take a penalty. Redo that penalty, because now I think I can score. So I said to him, no, well, you've got 2 days. You write to Liverpool Football Club, and I came to you last time, so you must come to me this time, and we'll do it at half-time on the pitch when we play Roma there at Anfield. And he declined, so bad luck.
The mind game's...
the mind game's still... If he didn't want to travel to Liverpool to do it in the middle of at half-time. Liverpool and UEFA would have agreed for sure. But because he didn't come, he lost the opportunity.
That initial invitation suggests that Graziani still thinks about this quite a bit and still thinks you are responsible for him missing that penalty.
Correct, and he's going to miss again.
Was he doing it as part of a TV stunt, or was this just...
I don't know. I don't know. He asked me, and I said, I'm not coming over there when the game is going to be played in Liverpool. You come to Liverpool, and we'll do it at half-time. Never heard anything more. So.
We should set that up.
Only when Liverpool play Roma.
Right.
In Liverpool. So if there's a next time,
who knows?
You know what to do.
Who knows? Yeah, we'll be on it.
You'll be on it. There we go.
You played under. We were just saying before you came in, you played under essentially 75% of Liverpool's most sort of legendary managers at all time. It was such an unbelievably interesting time at the club. And Paisley was the player that signed you, and he had seen you maybe a year or 18 months playing in Division 4, I think. And he had, what I read was that he had seen you in the warm-up and turned to one of his coaches and went, let's go, I don't need to see the game, we're going to sign that guy. Is that right?
Well, that is the story. Because I was told by Crew Alexander manager Tony Waddington, he said, this is the last game of the season, 3rd of May 1980, playing against York City at home, Cresty Road. And he came to me before the game. Because he was a manager like that, he told all the players, excuse me, there's a team watching you today, please, So he said to me, well, there's 2 very important people coming to watch you today, Tom Saunders and Bob Paisley from Liverpool. Please don't do something stupid.
They were asking the wrong man.
Yeah, well, so I did my warm-up and I did run out with an umbrella because it was raining.
Right.
For the warm-ups.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just so they knew who you were. That was.
Yeah. So I didn't want to get wet. So I went into the box with my umbrella, and then I did my warm-ups, and so.
Yeah.
He came when I ran in. The manager was shaking his head like this, and I said, "What's the matter?" He says, "What's the matter? I thought I told you not to do something stupid." I said, "Why?" He says, "Well, you know those two people that came to watch you play?" I said, "What do you mean came? Aren't they here?" He says, "No, they've gone to see Stoke City play Port Vale."
And it took them a while to snare you after that.
Well, they had to.
Yeah.
It took them a while because they thought I was a Crew player. And Crew told them that I'm a Vancouver player. So they had to come out to Vancouver. And they only asked me one question. "Do you want to play for Liverpool?" I said, "Yes." And then they said, "Okay, Tom, let's go." And they walked out the door again.
Yeah.
Never saw them for another 6 weeks. And then 6 weeks later, manager comes to me and says, "I've just sold you to Liverpool for £250,000. Here's your ticket, you're going tonight."
Wow.
That was it.
And you pretty much straight into the first team?
Well, I got here in March. I played 3 games for the reserves, all away from home. Everton away, Bolton Wanderers away, and Leeds United away. Let in 1 goal and 2 wins and a draw.
Right. Pretty good start. There was so much more we wanted to talk to you about. We want to get, before we wrap up, want to get your prediction, obviously, of the game tomorrow. How you think it's going to go? Like everybody's expecting goals.
Yes, both teams are very formidable in their attacking situation. I think that we've got the quickest counter-attacking forwards out of the Premiership. Salah, Firmino and Mane are just lightning quick.
It'd be incredible to be training with them on a regular basis, wouldn't it?
Oh, it would be. And with Van Dijk at the back, holding fort, you have a look at the goalkeeping situation, Karius. Karius will become the best money goalkeeper by in the Premiership in the future. He cost $4 million from Men's. He is going to be immense in the game, because I tell you what, he's come on leaps and bounds since Van Dijk has been there. I predict that there are going to be goals, and I'm going to say that we will score, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
But it's how many we concede, and I'm going to go for 3-1.
To Liverpool, obviously.
To Liverpool, yeah.
Very good. All right. Well, I'm sure there's a lot of Liverpool fans who are watching in who'll be pretty pleased with that. Bruce, pleasure chatting to you. Thanks a million. Wish we had another half hour, but that's got to wrap it. Thanks a million for coming into us.
Thank you very much indeed. And listen, everybody out there must go down there. Harry's on the green.
Harry's on the green. This lunchtime Champions League preview, Bruce Grobbelaar is going to be there doing just that. So listen, enjoy it. Thanks a million for coming into us. That's pretty much it for us from this morning. Shane Stapleton is going to be back on the airways from 12:30 today. It's the Hurling Show, as it is every Friday afternoon. He's going to be joined by Michael Verney and the former Dublin footballer Niall Corcoran. That's coming your way this afternoon. Brian O'Driscoll's in studio this evening to preview the big game, the Pro 14 final tomorrow, and a preview of the hurling as well. And as always, the crappy quiz. But from myself, from Bruce, and from Eoin, from us,